The second video. This is the two-piece crown. This is a good case because I'm going to use the exact same case I did for number 5 with the one-piece monolithic, and we're going to go over some challenges and some reasonings why we would, actually would want to do fully guided here to be a little bit more accurate with our implant placement. So these implants were placed in 3, 4, 5. So again, there were some limitations to where we can place them, but we'll have some dialogue of why this two-piece may or may not work for this location, and go through the process of actually doing it. So, all right, let's start there. Let's go to implant. We're going to do abutment with crown instead of the screw retained crown. We're going to do bio-individual since we're not using wax up. We're going to use the CEREC 4D abutment. Like I said, your library might be different, but at the school, that's what we're pretty much doing until we get the update. And crown material IPS Emax. MCXL virtual is just our virtual mill. And now we're going to go down to dense ply Sirona others. And we're kind of going to do the same thing we did last time. So we're going to go down here to the OTS 4.0L. And that's the wider or the regular, not the narrow platform. So a little bit bigger platform, which we like. And the scan body we're going to use to match is going to be the scan post. And like I said in the first video, I like the scan post because it's a little longer. You can actually see the guidelines on the scan post and the guidelines on the scan body, so you know that they're seated correctly. When the tie base sits a little bit lower in the tissue, it's hard to see whether or not you're down properly. So you incur a little bit more cost because you're getting a tie base, scan post, and scan body versus a tie base and scan body. But still, I think that's a better option. So now we're going to go to tooth number 5. And these are the case details. And if you want to take a photo of that for the abutment with crown, you can, or snap it. I'm going to bypass acquisition and go into model. Biggest thing with acquisition, remember, is that we do a bilateral non-continuous bite. So we take right side, left side without attaching them. It's a little bit more accurate. It's basically what the research says. And let's go to model. Okay, and what we're going to do is, usually this is automatically clicked but I've been messing with it, so you're just going to double click the scan body head. And we're going to go to the next thing, which is called edit baseline. I like the edit baseline feature because it allows me to shape the actual outline of the zirconia abutment a little bit better based on where we did the tissue retraction. If we're using a custom healing abutment, custom former, if you're using a laser, this is ideal to shape these in the right position. So for better shape of your zirconia crown and then your crown. I'm going to come right on to the outside portion of, go back up. There you go. Just almost to the top. And that's just going to help with the minimal thickness. And we're going to talk about that minimal thickness. That's why I chose to do this, because I'm going to show you why this might not be an ideal case for the two-piece because of our minimal thickness. So so we got that. Let's go on to design. Now, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to get what's called an unsplit. It's like we're doing the same crown that we did in the screw retained. So we just need to come in and actually shape it again. And give the crown some shape. Now, knowing that this is going to be a two-piece, you need room for the abutment and you need room for the Emax. And this is where this case is going to be a little challenging, because if you look straight down, this implant is placed a little bit more mesial and you don't have as much room over here. Where ideally, if we would have placed this, these were placed, very not fully guided, this would have been moved over about right here. So you would have equal distance on both sides, and you would have been able to have a more predictable outcome with the two-piece. But you're going to see how this is not going to be that way. And we'll go through the process of doing it, but why this isn't the ideal. So we're going to get this a little bit bigger than we had on the other one, only because we need the room for the material. And so we're going to bring this down, give it a little bit more ideal shape. And Okay, so now we got this. Now we're going to go to the next part, which is the two-piece. The contacts are a little strong, so I'll just bring them down a little bit. And all right. Okay, for right now, that's pretty good. So let's go generate the two-piece. And like I said, from this view, you can see that this is a little bit more mesial, so we don't have as much room over here for the restoration. So we're gonna go over here in tools. So over here in tools, and then we're gonna go to split. And now we're gonna split this restoration into a zirconia core and a Emax. There we go. Now you can kind of see what I'm talking about. There's the minimal thickness material for this abutment, and you can see that it's kind of violating that area. And you can see where this is pushing on this restoration. So you see we're going to have some issues. I want to go through this so you see like why it's really important to make sure you're placing these implants in the right position, especially if you're going to do an aesthetic case where you actually want to use this functionality. I'm going to go through the functionality, some of those things that we use to shape the abutment to get it right. But I will tell you going forward from this, that this is not an ideal case to do because of these minimal thickness parameters, which will be violated. So, okay, let's put the crown back on. Just take a look at it. Now you can see the minimal thickness, but if we went to manufacture this as is, it's going to throw us a nice air. Minimal geometry requirements are not ideal. So it's going to throw us a lot of errors here for this restoration. So, and then you can see here the abutment, a lot of things going on with this. So let's go back to design and let's go through this. Okay. Oops. Okay. All right, we're going to go to scale, and let me turn off the upper jaw. And you see all that wonkiness going on there. So we're going to go scale. We're going to hit smooth, whole occlusal. We're going to grab that abutment, and we are just going to smooth everything out. Okay, so you have your crown done. So now we're going to go on to the next step, which is smoothing, which is actually splitting the restoration into two parts. Now you can see, again, what we were talking about where the implant is a little bit more mesial, so you don't have as much space over here. That's important because if this is pre-planned as going to be a more aesthetic two-piece, you're definitely going to want to make sure that that implant is placed centered and you have enough room for material thickness when considering a zirconia core plus an Emax over the top. I mean, if you wanted to do some type of hybrid, then this might be a case you would send to the lab and not do chairside. If you want to do some type of porcelain fused to zirconia, so, but in this case, if we're going to do a chair side with two-piece aesthetic, probably won't be ideal, and you're going to see why. Now I'm going to go through the whole case and show you some of the features and how you shape your tooth and all that, but just kind of take that into consideration as we're doing that. And again, I showed this on purpose because this works really well for the one piece, but is not really ideal for the two-piece version that we were talking about. So, and for these reasons that you're going to find out. So, all right, so let's go through that. I just want to kind of clarify, make sure that looks good. Now we're going to go into what's calling the split. So we're going to split this into a zirconia and a cement retained crown. There we go. We split them up, and now you can see the minimal thickness that's occurring, and that is the blue. What we're going to do is we're just going to turn that off for the moment, and we're going to just shape the abutment. So I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn off the restoration there, and we're going to go over some of the features. The main feature or features on this are going to be your scale tool. The scale tool basically does everything in CEREC to shape your abutment. And one of the first things you can do is basically take this scale, occlusal, hole, and smooth out, and just smooth out your margins. And what you're going to do is you're going to grab the margin, and you're just going to press up and down. And you can see how it just smooths out the margins. That's really your first step when you're doing this. And okay, and that is smooth out. So put that back and take a look. Looking pretty good. There's your minimal thickness. Now you can see when we smooth that out, the minimal thickness went down, or went up. So we have more areas where we need to modify. And we're going to show you how to do that and how to make that as best as you can. So, okay. So let's turn this guy back off. I'm going to go grab this. I right click, turn. See how I touch that, I pull that up and down, I right click it, and then I click off. That turns off the crown, so you just see the abutment. Some people do or do not know that, so I just want to bring that up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change some things to get rid of the minimal thickness. So we're going to go to radial. We're going to go scale. We're going to turn that off, and we're just going to move the radial function outward just to give a little bit more thickness where we need it to go. So we're just going to pull that. Sometimes the minimal thickness gets in your way, so you just sometimes need to turn it off. And now use that to move things outward. So now you can start seeing that we're actually touching the crown on the inside. So you can see where this is going to be a minimal thickness for the restoration. And this is probably, again, like I said, not going to be the most ideal case to use for a two-piece, but at least you can kind of see the process of how we do it. So there we go. There's your abutment. Put that back on. And minimal thickness. There's our minimal thickness parts. So one of the things that you can do is you can hit occlusal. We can leave scale hole off, but we can go down to like 50, 60%, and we can actually move the margins up and down. If we want to set them a slightly sub G, we're going to bring that down, but you see how that's actually causing the thickness of the material to go thin. So, and then up. So this is how you would adjust for that. But I definitely want the buckle to sit sub G. So that's how I do it. If I was on the other side, I would just bring this up. On the lingual, I'm not too worried about it too much, but you can see how, as I'm bringing it up, it thickens up everything. And same way over here, I'm going to bring this up slightly to the gingival crest, and you can see how that's thickening up that margin, but still a little too thin in those areas. And so, okay, now let's put this guy back on and take a look. Now there's your crown, and then there's your minimal thickness. So we're pretty close to where we could have, but again, the minimal thickness requirement, we would have to bulk this up, and then we would actually have to bulk this up to get that same occlusion. Not a big deal on the lingual, but on that mesial marginal ridge might be a major issue for that. So bring that down. So we get and then we bring this in, and you can see how we're hitting a thinness there. So you can see how much you would have had to prep this tooth back, or at least put this in the right position. And like, if you remember where the implant was, let's put it there, and this and that. Now you can see how this would have benefited if this implant was placed a little bit more to the distal. So this gives, a real strong reasoning why we do guided surgery. That's why here at the school, 100% of all our DOs are placed in fully guided, so that way we can place it in the most opportune or most ideal location so we can restore it. Again, we do a lot of crown down restoratively driven. We do this planning first, and then we follow back up with placing the implant for these reasons alone. So essentially, let's move forward down the line, and I'll show you basically what we're going to get at the end. So unlike the screw retained or screw-mentable crown, this is the abutment crown. So now we have two parts. We have the abutment. Again, if you need to turn that off, you're basically just going to occlusal, kind of move that just a little bit, right click it, and then it turns that off. So now you're looking at the abutment, and then the crown that goes on top. So if we go to manufacture, it's going to throw us an error. And so it's going to ask if you want to resolve it automatically. And you're going to say yes. And now there is your crown. And there is your abutment. And you can see how basically, because of the minimal thickness requirements for the material, it added that piece back in so you don't underdo it. So that would be your abutment and your crown on top. And those two pieces will be sent to the mill to be milled out in the Emax and zirconia. So those are the steps on how to make a one-piece and two-piece. This is the video for two-piece. I hope you can appreciate why it's really important that we're doing fully guided implant restorations, fully guided DO here at the school, so that we can have a predictable outcome, especially if we are considering things like aesthetic two-piece in-house restorations. If not, this would probably have to go out to the lab if you wanted some porcelain versus zirconia crown, or if you were going to do this as monolithic. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them, and also setting this case up. If you need any help with that, come see me here in the clinic. If you're seeing this outside on YouTube, send me messages and I can help you troubleshoot problems, especially like something like this comes up where you don't have enough thickness due to minimal thickness requirements for your material. Thank you and have a great day.